So in today's Prelims Basket, we are going to discuss some very important facts as far as prelims is concerned from the examination point of view in ancient India, mostly ancient India topics. And this is going to be a little long because there are very important topics to cover. And also since we haven't uploaded the previous prelims basket video, so it's all clubbed in this, and these are very important facts as far as prelims is concerned and as far as ancient India is concerned. And so let's start with some facts related to the Indus Valley civilization. So pehle, quickly, the Indus Valley civilization was a Bronze Age civilization. Okay, this we have to remember. It was a Bronze Age civilization, and it preceded the Iron Age. The Harappans were unaware of the use of iron. They were unaware of the use of iron. Okay, and what did they use? The Harappans used copper, bronze, silver, and gold. और यहाँ पर कुछ बहुत ही इम्पोर्टेंट फैक्ट्स हैं जो हमारे लिए काफ़ी इम्पोर्टेंट हो सकते हैं बिकॉज दिस इज़ वन टॉपिक जहाँ से हमेशा क्वेश्चंस आते ही हैं. सो लेट्स हैव अ लुक एट इट. लास्ट वाले प्रीलिम्स में ढोलावीरा से आया था. देयर वाज अ क्वेश्चन अबाउट ढोलावीरा. सो एनीवेज लेट्स सी दिस. सो वील सी द मेजर हरप्पन साइट्स and their excavators and their important findings. This we'll keep in mind. कौन से river के it is located by which river, which site, that we will see. ठीक है. सबसे पहला site Harappa. Harappa is by the river Ravi, and it was discovered in the year 1921, and it was the first site to be discovered. इसीलिए civilization का नाम Harappan civilization पड़ गया because Harappa was the first site. And excavators, who was the excavator here? Dayaram Sahani was the excavator of this site of Harappa. What are the important findings? This we'll keep in mind. So important findings Harappa say: granaries, there were bullock carts, sandstone statues of humans, copper chariot with canopy, and workmen's quarters. Just एक आइडिया होना चाहिए कि ये सारी चीजें थी. Right? Harappa by the river Ravi, excavated by Dayaram Sahani, and important findings: granaries, bullock carts, copper chariots. Then Mohenjo-daro by the river Indus, important. एंड इसके बाद जस्ट एक साल बाद ये एक्सकेवेट किया गया था 1922 में. बाय हुम? द एक्सकेवेटर वाज आर.डी. बैनर्जी. यहाँ पर क्या इंपॉर्टेंट फाइंडिंग्स हैं? ब्रॉन्ज डांसिंग गर्ल, ये सब आपने देखा ही होगा. सो वील वंस गो थ्रू द नेम्स, तो फिर एंड वील ट्राई एंड कीप दिस इन माइंड. राइट, सो द ब्रॉन्ज डांसिंग गर्ल, एंड देन देयर इज द Pashupati Seal, then the statue of the bearded man, the great bath, granary, and a piece of woven cotton. These are the findings from Mohenjo-daro. So remember, जो bronze dancing girl का statue था वो कहाँ से था? Mohenjo-daro. Pashupati Seal, again Mohenjo-daro. The bearded man का statue from Mohenjo-daro. The great bath was found in Mohenjo-daro. These are the important ones. Okay, and then the next site is Sutka Gendor, however it is pronounced. ठीक है. And ये Indus के river, it was by Indus river, and what we can remember here is that it was a trade point between Harappa and Babylon. So Sutka Gendor, Indus river, and a trade point between Harappa and Babylon. Then Chanu-daro. It was basically to by the river Indus. So you see Mohenjo-daro and Chanu-daro both are by the river Indus, right? And what we can remember here is that this was, यहाँ पर क्या पाया गया था? There were bead maker shop here, and footprint of a dog chasing a cat was found in Chanu-daro. Then the next site is Banga. It is by the river Ghaggar. And यहाँ पर what are the important findings? Camel bones, wooden plow. Remember this, wooden plow. Fire altar, discovery of a plow field, and evidence of the earliest datable earthquake. Kalibanga में क्या मिला था? So first of all, remember that it's by the river Ghaggar. camel bones, wooden plow, fire altar, and they discovered a plow field. So ये वाला जो discovery है of a plowed field, this is one of the most important discoveries of Kalibanga. Okay, so the most important discovery of Kalibanga is a plowed field. और ये कालीबंगा में एक्चुअली बर्न्ट ब्रिक्स यूज नहीं किए गए थे, अर्दन ब्रिक्स यूज किए गए थे. यहाँ पे ड्रेनेज सिस्टम भी नहीं पाया गया था, राइट. सो रिमेंबर दैट what are the important things that we can take away when we talk about Kalibanga? It is that it is in Rajasthan and it has given the earliest evidence for a plowed field, plowed agricultural field ever, revealed through an excavation, of course. It is also a site that has given an evidence of the earliest recorded earthquake, and that is about 2600 BCE, around that time. And fire altars have been found here, and यहाँ पर से ये reveal होता है कि people here believed in the ritualistic, people were ritualistic and believed in worship or believed in worship of fire. And तो कालीबंगा में जो the burials that have been found, there are circular burials and circular graves, and then there are also rectangular graves. Next thing, quote दीजी. एक ही चीज यहाँ पर याद रखने लायक है कि it is by the Indus river, and basically it is situated on the left bank of Ghaggar. Indus याद रख लीजिएगा. रंगपुर, तो रंगपुर के बारे में ये रिमेम्बर कर सकते हैं कि it is by the river Madar, and what we can remember is that it is situated, okay fine, Madar river, ये याद रखना काफी है. यहाँ पर plant remains में ये याद रखिएगा कि rice was found in Rangpur. This is important. Bajra, possibly Bajra has been found here, and then there are millets and rice. So large quantity of plant remains were found here, of which rice is there, millets, and possibly Bajra as well. Then the next Indus Valley site is Ropar, and this is by the river Satluj. But this is what we have to keep in mind. Ropar by the river Satluj. वैसे कोई बहुत remarkable findings नहीं है Ropar में, तो that can help us actually eliminate certain options. So let us say water harvesting, elaborate water harvesting system का जो जैसे पिछली बार question आया था, तो there was an option Ropar. So यहाँ Ropar में there is basically not. There are not very many remarkable findings from Ropar, but हाँ कुछ findings हैं, जैसे कि there was a finding of a dog buried with humans, and there were oval pit burials, and then there were buildings made of stone, but nothing that we have to particularly keep in mind as such. अब चानूदारो के बारे में एक चीज और है जो हम नोट कर सकते हैं कि दिस इज द ओनली सिटी विदाउट अ सिटाडेल. तो देयर वाज, हमें पता है एक सिटाडेल हुआ करता था, एंड देन देयर वाज अ लोअर टाउन. जनरली ये पैटर्न फॉलो किया जाता था. तो चानूदारो में दिस इज द ओनली सिटी विदाउट अ सिटाडेल. अब यहाँ पर नेक्स्ट साइट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, दैट इज लोथल. लोथल इज बाय द रिवर भोगवा, एंड यहाँ पर क्या है, दिस वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग इज दैट इट वाज अ पोर्ट टाउन. इट इज अ पोर्ट टाउन, यानी कि यहाँ पर डॉकयार्ड था. दिस इज वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. एंड यहाँ पर एविडेंस ऑफ राइस, अगेन इंपॉर्टेंट. सी एक जगह कहाँ पर था, रंगपुर में राइस वाज देयर, एंड यहाँ नेक्स्ट Lothal में rice was there. So there has been evidence of rice from Lothal and Rangpur. And fire altars was there, and then there was this chess playing that is found, and then there is this first man-made pottery with the painting of clever fox. देखिए मोस्ट ऑफ द सिटीज में बिग ब्रिक्स यूज किए गए थे. देयर वाज दिस कालीबंगा जहाँ पर मड ब्रिक्स यूज किए गए थे. सो अपार्ट फ्रॉम दैट यहाँ लोथल में भी बिग ब्रिक्स ही थे. एंड डॉकयार्ड इज द थिंग दैट वी हैव टू कीप इन माइंड. तो यहाँ पर डॉकयार्ड था, इसका मतलब क्या है कि यहाँ पर मेरीटाइम एक्टिविटी हुआ करती थी. दैट इज in the time of the Indus Valley civilization, there was maritime activity that existed. So that is what we can remember. अब रोपर यहाँ पर जो हमने देखा, what you can as I said, nothing major यहाँ पर. But एक चीज, like I said, dog buried with humans, you can just try and remember dog buried with humans, and then there were oval pit burials, oval shape के burials थे, oval pit burials. वैसे उसके अलावा और कोई remarkable finding अभी हमें याद रखने की जरूरत नहीं है from रोपड़. Then एक हाँ, कालीबंगा में actually there is this bangle factory that was there. एंड ठीक है. देन नेक्स्ट इज आलमगीरपुर. कुछ खास याद रखने वाली चीज नहीं है. यू कैन रिमेंबर दिस रिवर्स नेम, हिंडन रिवर, हाउएवर इट प्रोनाउंस्ड. अब नेक्स्ट आता है राखी गढ़ी. राखी गढ़ी इज बेसिकली इन हरियाणा. ये थोड़ा इम्पोर्टेंट इसलिए हो जाता है बिकॉज लास्ट ईयर के बजट में ये बोला गया था कि देयर वाज अ प्रपोजल टू डेवलप राखी गढ़ी एज एन आइकॉनिक साइट. What we have to remember here is that Rakhi Gari is by the river Gagar. एक बहुत important fact ये है कि राखी गढ़ी is the largest Harappan site in the Indian subcontinent. It is the largest. So जितने भी Harappan sites हैं उसमें से सबसे बड़ा राखी गढ़ी है. It is the largest one. And so here it is given Professor Suraj Bhan. Anyhow, that is, we don't have to remember that much. But kahin kaha jata hai the site is also excavated by Amarendra Nath of the Archaeological Society, Archaeological Survey of India. अब ये जो राखी गढ़ी है, this revealed the mature phase, the mature Harappan phase, and यहाँ पर mud brick भी था, burnt brick भी था, proper drainage was also there in राखी गढ़ी, right? And that's about it. Then next is Surkotada, and it is situated in Kutch. वैसा कोई river यहाँ पर नहीं है. And यहाँ पर very important finding is that bones of horses have been found here. That is the important thing that we have to remember. This is the highlight of the site, Surkotada. यहाँ पे horse bones पाए गए थे. तो एक्चुअली क्या है कि सुरकोटड़ा में there is this excavation in 1974. Archaeological Survey of India undertook these excavations and they reported the findings of bones, and they said that these bones are horse bones. And so this was examined and it was found that a few of those samples were horse bones, most probably. But then there are also experts who say that it may not be horses. Nevertheless, उतना हमें नहीं जानना है. हमें ये याद रखना है कि अगर हॉर्स बोन से एसोसिएटेड है तो इट इज दिस साइट. इट इज दिस साइट. सुरकोटड़ा इज एसोसिएटेड विद बोन्स ऑफ हॉर्सेस. नेक्स्ट क्विकली बनावली इज ऑन सरस्वती रिवर एंड यहाँ पर क्या है, बीड्स, बार्ली, नथिंग एक्स्ट्रॉर्डिनरी. अब ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. इससे लास्ट टाइम तो क्वेश्चन आ ही गया था हालांकि. सो धोलावीरा. अब ये बेसिकली दिस is India's 40th World Heritage Site. UNESCO announced somewhere in July last year कि धोलावीरा is India's 40th World Heritage Site, and ये India का first it is the first Indus Valley civilization site that has been included in this World Heritage Site list. So first Indus Valley civilization to be included in this UNESCO का World Heritage Site list, and 40th India का 40th है. So हम Super 40 club enter कर चुके हैं. There's also a video about it. You can check it out in the playlist of GS1 Detailed 1. See, हालांकि it was 1968 में it was discovered by archaeologist J.P. Joshi. Anyhow, that much detail we don't have to know. What we have to keep in mind for now is that this has a very elaborate, the site had a very elaborate water harnessing system. This is very important water harvesting system, and there is a water reservoir that has been found in the largest Harappan inscription. So basically ये कहा जाता है कि this यहाँ जो वर्ल्ड का अर्लीस्ट साइन बोर्ड है, perhaps that is there in धोलावीरा, earliest sign board. So there has been a cascading series of water reservoirs that have been found, and there is outer fortification of the site. एंड इसके अलावा कुछ hemispherical structures भी हैं that resemble the Buddhist stupas. There have been hemispherical structures that have also been found, somewhat like the Buddhist stupas. एक एडिशनल फैक्ट ये नोट कर सकते हैं हम कि धोलावीरा's लोकेशन is on the Tropic of Cancer. So Dholavira lies on the Tropic of Cancer, and it is located in the Khadir Bait Island in the Kutch Desert Wildlife Sanctuary in the Great Run of Kutch. So ये जो सिटी है धोलावीरा का, दिस अनलाइक द अदर सिटीज वाज डिवाइडेड इनटू 3 पार्ट्स. बाकी सिटीज हमने देखा 2 पार्ट्स में होते हैं, एक सिटाडेल दैट इज द अपर टाउन एंड द लोअर टाउन. यहाँ पर एक मिडिल टाउन भी था. So those were some important facts. The next important fact that we can remember is that Harappans did not use metal money. They did not use metal money. So archaeologists say that they carried out their exchanges at this period through the barter system. So for this barter system, they probably carried out exchanges through barter system. Ye archaeologists say because they have discovered a massive canal where what they think is a docking facility, and they say that they probably carried out exchanges through a barter system. अब Mesopotamian records may be mentioned in the Mesopotamian records of about 2300 BCE के आसपास, 2350 BCE के आसपास Mesopotamian records refer to trade relations with Meluha. Okay, this is the ancient name that has been given to the Indus Valley civilization. So this was the ancient name given to the Indus Valley civilization by as has been found in the Mesopotamian records. Mesopotamian records, actually, if you look at it, the Mesopotamian texts speak of 2 और trading stations, intermediate trading stations. एक का नाम है दिलमन and one is Makan. And so this lays between Mesopotamia and the actual Indus Valley civilization site, that is what they refer to as Meluha. So इसके बीच में ये दोनों आते हैं, and this is probably identifiable with present day Bahrain on the Persian Gulf. एक फैक्ट हम ये नोट कर सकते हैं कि Harappans probably used the wooden plow. Next, see, Indus people produced wheat, barley, ragi, peas, and there has been a substantial quantity of barley that was discovered at Banwali in Haryana. Sesame and mustard were also grown. हमने देखा था rice के बारे में. Rice was found at 2 locations. One was Lothal and one was Rangpur. Like when we saw the table. Right, and यहाँ पर एक और the other fact is that the Indus people were the earliest people to produce cotton. They were the earliest people. They are regarded as the earliest people who produced cotton. Greeks called this area as Sindon, which is derived from Sindh. देखिए बहुत सारी चीज़ें अभी हमारे लिए क्लियर नहीं है अबाउट द इंडस वैली सिविलाइजेशन. वन रीजन इज दैट जो इंडस वैली का स्क्रिप्ट है दैट इज येट टू बी डेसिफर्ड. अभी भी उसको डेसिफर नहीं किया गया है. So the script of the Harappans is mostly pictographic. And see, the other thing, as far as animals are concerned, what were the animals that were domesticated? Oxen, buffaloes, goats, sheep, pigs were domesticated. Humped bulls were favored by the Harappans, and there is also an evidence of dogs and cats, asses and camels being bred. इसके अलावा हॉर्स के बारे में हमने देखा कि there has been an evidence that has been found in, probably there is an evidence of horse being found in Surkotata, but from that we cannot conclude that they had horses then. What we can say is that the Harappans were aware about horse, but they did not domesticate the horse. तो Harappans जानते थे शायद horses के बारे में, but they did not domesticate horses. So, something doubtful. So the next important fact that we can remember or we can keep in mind is about this Pashupati Seal. So this basically is a seal that shows a seated figure of a yogi, probably surrounded by four animals, and we'll try and keep the animals that are there in the Pashupati seal in mind. So एक rhino है, there is a rhino, and then there is an elephant, and then there is a tiger, and a buffalo. And then there are two deer that are shown at the bottom of the seat. And so there are two. So what are the animals? So there is a rhino, a buffalo, an elephant, a tiger, and two deer. ये animals हैं, चार animals ऊपर में हैं, and एक deer, मतलब दो deer हैं नीचे. Basically 5 animals. इसको ऐसे याद रख सकते हैं, are dead, are rhino, dead, deer, elephant, buffalo, and tiger. Eventually, this civilization ended. The Indus Valley civilization ended. 1800 के आसपास the Indus Valley civilization saw the beginning of its decline, and writing धीरे धीरे वहाँ से disappear होने लगा. Standards, weights and measures जो use किए जाते थे वो they fell out of use, and cities were gradually abandoned. So reasons क्या है इस decline के, that is not very clear, but कुछ there are certain speculations, there are certain theories that exist about the decline of the Indus Valley civilization. कुछ लोग कहते हैं कि it could be the drying up of the Saraswati river that caused the decline, and some say that there could have been a great flood in the area. Either ways, there was a catastrophic effect on agricultural activity, and the economy eventually was no longer sustainable, and it broke the civic order of the cities at that point of time. Later, a large group of nomadic cattle herders, as you must be aware, the Aryans, migrated to this region from Central Asia. The Aryans crossed the Hindu Kush mountains, and they then came in contact with the Indus Valley civilization. एक large migration था, and कुछ लोगों को ये मानना है कि there was an invasion, that earlier it used to be seen as an invasion, which was thought as the reason for the collapse of the Indus Valley civilization. पर ये theory unanimously supported नहीं है. This many people do not believe in this theory, so that is not a clear thing. The Aryan invasion theory is still not unanimously supported, and it is merely a hypothesis that some hold. So now certain important facts about the Vedic and later Vedic period. तो सबसे पहले ऋग्वेदा के बारे में देख लेते हैं. See, यहाँ पर what happened is that there was a new culture that flourished and spread across the Ganga and Yamuna plains, and this culture came to be known as the Aryan culture, Vedic period. So Aryans basically settled on the banks of rivers Indus and Saraswati. Indus was then known Sindhu, and Saraswati, which is said to be non-existent now. So then ऋग्वेद के बारे में कुछ important चीजें देख लेते हैं. Some important facts. So the Rig Veda consists of 10 mandals, 1028 suktas, not important. See, what we have to remember is that Rig Veda is a collection of prayers offered to Indra, Agni, Mitra and Varun. यहाँ पर Rig Veda में there is no mention of Lord Brahma. There is no mention. The Rig Veda does not mention Lord Brahma. And there's this third mandal in the Rig Veda which consists of Gayatri Mantra. So the Gayatri Mantra is in the Rig Veda, and the Gayatri Mantra was composed by Vishwamitra. And the Rig Veda consists of female goddesses such as Usha, Aditi. So Surya does find mention, but Surya is prominently associated in the Rig Veda with the dawn goddess Usha. And sometimes he is mentioned as her son or her husband. Anyhow, So Surya finds mention. Usha, Aditi are the female goddesses. Goddess Lakshmi is also mentioned. Shiva, Lord Shiva, is referred to as Rudra, and Rig Veda does not mention Lord Brahma. Up next, let us look at what were the modern rivers called in the Rig Vedic time. So these are the Rig Vedic names and these are the modern names. So Kubhu, the river Kurram was called as Kubhu in the Rig Ved. So this is the Rig Vedic name. The Kubhu is the Rig Vedic name. Kurram river, if you remember, is a river in Pakistan, and it originates somewhere in a province of Afghanistan. Basically, later on drains into it later on joins the Indus River. Anyhow, Kurram river was the Rig Vedic name of Kurram was Kubhu. Bias का Rig Vedic नाम था Vipasha. The river Kabul का नाम था Kubha. Rig Vedic नाम was Kubha. Kabul river is basically a river currently. Kabul is in present day Afghanistan. So basically, it emerges in the Hindu Kush mountains in Afghanistan, and then later on empties into the Indus River. Kabul empties into the Indus River near a Tok in Pakistan. Anyhow, Kabul was उसका ऋग्वेदिक नाम था कुभा. गंडक का ऋग्वेदिक नाम था सदानीरा. झेलम का ऋग्वेदिक नाम था तस्तत. So this we can remember. So certain important rivers के नाम याद रख सकते हैं. सारे के तो it's difficult to remember, but certain prominent rivers we will try and keep in mind. So this we can keep in mind. And river Ghagar, present day river Ghagar, was Drishdavati. Chenab was Askini. This we can keep in mind. And the river, present day river Gomal, was Gomti. River Ravi was Purushni. This we can keep in mind. And Swat was Suvastu. Satlaj was Shatudri. So these we'll keep in mind. The India के जो prominent rivers हैं उसको याद रख लेंगे. Bias, Bipasha or Vipasha. Bias was Vipasha. Jhelum was Vitastat. Chenab, Askini. Ravi का ऋग्वेदिक नाम था Parushni and या Purushni, and Satlaj was Shatudri. Next, quickly about Samved, some facts about Samved that we can remember. It is an extension to the Rig Veda, right? And it is one important fact that we can remember is that it is considered to be the oldest text on Indian music. It is considered to be the oldest text on Indian music. And it mostly contains hymns dedicated to sun god. So we can remember Samved, say remember sun god. It basically is mostly dedicated to sun god. The next thing that we can remember is about in Samved is that it talks about the appearance and disappearance of the Saraswati river. So next, कुछ important facts Yajurveda say. So Yajurveda basically contains यज्ञ और रिचुअल. सो इट टॉक्स अबाउट रिचुअल्स. एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट फैक्ट जो हम याद रख सकते हैं इज दैट राइस इज मेंशन्ड एज व्रीही. दिस वी कैन रिमेंबर क्योंकि कभी कभी ऐसी चीजें पूछ सकते हैं. देयर वाज अ क्वेश्चन लॉन्ग बैक दैट in prelims once, not related to the Vedas, but there was a question that asked separately. यहाँ पर so from that we can understand कि किस तरीके के questions आ सकते हैं as far as terms are concerned. So the question was, the term यवन प्रिया is related to which species? तो ये एक term दिया गया था यवन प्रिया और ये पूछा गया था तो यवन प्रिया किस कौन से spice को यवन प्रिया बुलाया जाता है? So the answer was pepper. So इस तरीके का word association जो है पूछा जा सकता है. So maybe there could be a question that says the term vrihi as mentioned in the Yajurveda, or maybe they just say the term Vrihi is related to what? So it is rice. So this we can remember. So ये यवन प्रिया इस टाइम से रिलेटेड नहीं है. ये यवन प्रिया तो आई जस्ट टोल्ड यू एज अ सेपरेट एग्जांपल. ये तो रोमन जब ट्रेड इंडो रोमन ट्रेड से रिलेटेड है बेसिकली. सो मेजर आइटम्स दैट of export to the Romans were the Indian products like yavan priya, that is pepper, and Indo-Roman trade के बारे में there is this book that talks the best about it, that is known as the Periplus of the Aetherian Sea. Anyhow, that's a separate thing. Next, a few important facts about the Atharva Ved. See, Atharva Ved was basically more sort of, it consisted of charms and spells to ward off diseases, and इसको एक और नाम से बुलाया जाता है ब्रह्म वेद, ब्रह्म वेद, and it is associated with the priest Brahma. The priest is Brahma, and he is considered as the highest of all four Vedic priests. So the priest's name was Brahma here, and it mentions the Vedic assemblies of Sabha and Samiti. See, the Vedic literature is basically classified into two types. One is the Shruti literature and one is the Smriti literature. So Shruti literature वो है, Shruti का मतलब है to hear. So it the Shruti texts of the Vedic literature describes the sacred texts जिसमें आते हैं Vedas, Brahmanas, Aranyakas, Upanishads. Shruti literature is basically canonical and it is considered eternal per se. And Smriti literature, if you see, is supplementary and it may change over time. So Smriti literature is the entire body of the post-Vedic classical Sanskrit literature that consists of Vedang, Puranas, Itihasas, Tantras, Upangas. उतने डिटेल में जाने की जरूरत भी नहीं है. We should just work on our return on investment. Return on investment should be high. We'll spend time वहां पर जहां पर हमें ज्यादा returns मिलने के chances हैं. As far as the exam is concerned. So quickly ये देख लेते हैं. वैदिक लिटरेचर को हम 4 पार्ट्स में बांट सकते हैं या 4 कैटेगरीज में क्लासिफाई कर सकते हैं. वेदास, तो 4 वेदास जो हमने देखे अभी, दैट इज द ऋग्वेद, यजुर्वेद, अथर्ववेद एंड सामवेद, and their Samhitas. Okay, and then there are these Brahmanas, and then there are Aranyakas, and then there are Upanishads. Vedic literature, Vedas में 4 हो गए. अब Brahmanas क्या हैं? What are these Brahmanas, or however it's pronounced? So simply said, they are prose texts. Brahmanas are prose texts that explain the hymns of the Vedas. Vedas की जो hymns हैं, that have been explained in the Brahmanas, and so basically that, it's just an elaboration of that, और कुछ extra चीजें हैं उसमें. So basically the thing is, each Veda has associated with it one or more Brahmanas. Okay, one or more Brahmana, and it is a Brahmana is generally associated with a particular Vedic school. Then ये जो Aranyakas हैं, they are also known as forest books, and they basically contained certain sacrificial rituals. Sacrificial rituals were actually interpreted by the Aranyakas in a more symbolic and philosophical way, and that is what it contains. Upanishads. So Upanishads, there are about 108 Upanishads, and 13 are considered the major ones. यहाँ पर there is this concept of Atman, Brahman, and these are the things that are majorly explained in the Upanishads. तो Upanishads को actually एक और नाम से बुलाया जाता है, that is the Vedanta. Upanishads are also known as the Vedanta, that is the end of the Vedas, because they denote the last phase of the Vedic period, and secondly because they reveal the final aim of the Vedas. So the oldest Upanishads are considered to be the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad and the Chandogya Upanishad, which date back to as far as the first millennium BCE. The latest Upanishads, interestingly, were composed in medieval and early modern period. The latest Upanishad is the there's an Upanishad known as the Uktika Upanishad, and this was interestingly recorded by Dara Shikoh. And who was Dara Shikoh? Dara Shikoh was basically the son of the Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan. And he is known to have translated 50 Upanishads into Persian. एक बहुत important fact हम यहाँ पर याद रख सकते हैं as far as I just told you about the Vedic literature ताकि कुछ facts जो हैं वो हम याद रख सकें. So these are a few important facts that we can keep in mind. Okay, so there is this Aitriya Brahmana here, and that talks about the duties of all the four Varnas. One very important fact is that Satyamev Jayate, this phrase Satyamev Jayate has been drawn from the Mundaka Upanishad. This is important. Satyamev Jayate has been taken from or has been drawn from the Mundaka Upanishad. So there is another Brahmana, that is the Shatpata Brahmana, that talks about the plowing ritual. So we saw this category Brahmana of Vedic literature. So there is a Brahmana that is known as the Shatpata Brahmana that talks about plowing rituals and the concept of rebirth. We'll just keep this in mind. But this we'll try and remember. Mundaka Upanishad, Satyamev Jayate association. Now Chandogya Upanishad there's a Chandogya Upanishad that mentions 3 ashrams of Varna, Ashrama and Dharma. तो ये सही से नहीं दिया गया है यहाँ पे basically. देखिए, so the first 3 ashramas, these are the first 3 ashramas, that is the Brahmacharya, the Grihastha and the Vanaprastha. So these 3 are actually mentioned in the Chandogya Upanishad. And the first 3 ashramas or ashrams are mentioned in the Chandogya Upanishad, and they are explicitly explained. We don't have to go into that much detail. And there is this Shukla Yajurved that talks about the Rajasuya Yagya. So Yajurved के 2 parts थे basically. One was the Shukla Yajurved and the second was the Krishna Yajurved. So basically it is the Shukla Yajurved that talks about the Rajasuya Yagya. What was the Rajasuya Yagya? Rajasuya Yagya was basically the imperial sacrifice or the king's inauguration sacrifice. That was basically what we can call a ritual that was done for the consecration of a king. So जब भी कोई king ascend होता था throne पे, so then there was this Purohit who used to perform this Rajasuya Yagya to confer the supreme power on the king. So anyhow, that was mentioned, that finds mention in the Shukla Yajurved or Yajurved. So these are some way too factual things. We just try and have an idea about it. We'll try and keep this in mind ताकि कभी कोई association अगर आए, we'll be able to at least be in a position to eliminate options or be in a position to answer questions. कुछ चीजें थी important, vrihi rice, that we have to remember, and then certain important things here and there that we have seen. Now coming to the Vedic Society. A few important facts regarding the Vedic Society. So basically, Vedic Society में the early Vedic people basically worshipped forces of nature, and they personified those forces of nature as gods and goddesses. Indra, Agni, Varun, Marut were some of the gods, whereas Usha, Aditi were a few of their goddesses. Now, this basically the Aryan society was patriarchal, but it is said that women were treated with dignity and honor. Now, in the Vedic society, the family was the smallest social unit, and several families, that is Kul, made a village, that is Gram, and several villages formed a Vish. So बहुत सारे villages मिलकर एक विश बनाते थे. या फिर what we can also say is that a number of villages formed a tribe or a jana. And this was basically several villages came together and formed this jana, and this was ruled by a Rajan. So the chief, the chief was called the Rajan. And इसका chief function क्या था? इसका function था to protect the tribe from external attack and maintain law and order. And this Rajan was actually assisted by members of two councils called the Sabha and Samiti. So the later Vedic period basically is also the Iron Age, and it is here that we see the advent of iron coming into the picture. It is in the later Vedic era. So this later Vedic period coincides with the painted graveware sites. This is important, and this has already been covered in a previous video and in detail. So later, but what we have to remember is this association. Painted graveware is associated with the Iron Age or the later Vedic age. And the later Vedic period, in the later Vedic period, people were acquainted with four types of pottery: black and red ware, black slipware, painted greyware, and red ware. अब late Vedic period में people continued to produce barley, but उनका chief crop क्या हो गया? Rice and wheat became their chief crops. Later Vedic phase में agriculture जो है that became their primary source of livelihood. We see one reason is that in the later Vedic age, the wooden plows were actually replaced by iron plows. So at this point in the later Vedic time, people became more settled. Agriculture became their primary source of livelihood. They became settled, and later on, that is in the later Vedic times, this Rig Vedic tribal assemblies lost importance and royal power जो है वो increase हो गया. Women were no longer allowed to sit in the sabha. See, the condition of the women in this later Vedic period is said to have deteriorated from this time, and they suffered on account of various things such as education. They were not they were basically restricted in the houses, and due to social roles their condition began to deteriorate. So women suffered on account of education, social roles, which restricted them to be in households. But it was in this time, in the later Vedic phase, that the fourfold Varna classification also came. Okay, so these are certain facts that we should remember as far as later Vedic period is concerned. So later Vedic period saw the rise of the fourfold Varna system, that is the caste system: Brahman, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras, and also the institution of Gotra came here. And the later Vedic time also saw an established ashrama system. Basically, kuch nahi, ashrama system, it is the division of lifespan into four distinct stages. One is brahmacharya, then there's this grihastha ashram, then there's the vanprasth ashram, and then finally sannyas, something like that. So there was this established ashrama system that also came into existence during the, or rather it became more pronounced in the later Vedic time. और ये चीज थी कि ये जो सिस्टम था, that is the ashrama system that is dividing the lifespan into four distinct stages, was something that was not applicable to women or people of the lower castes or lower varnas. Parda and sati at this point of time, remember later Vedic time pe, it was not prevalent. There was no practice of parda or sati at this particular point of time. इस time पे the Rig Vedic gods Indra was a god prominent god in the Rig Ved, and Agni also was a prominent god in the Rig Vedic times. Both lost their significance in the later Vedic period, and their place was taken by this trinity of gods, that is Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. So basically, at this point, religion became extremely ritualistic, and there were too many rituals in place. Now, there are certain facts that we can have a look at about the socio-economic life in this later Vedic period, socio-economic life. So, यहाँ पर क्या होने लगा? There was a growth of craft production, there was a growth of trade, and इसकी वजह से there was a rise of the guilds. Guilds, what are guilds? Basically, this is an association of artisans and merchants who oversee the practice of their craft or trade. So there was a rise in guilds, जिसको बुलाया जाता था श्रेणी, which in later times became castes basically. And ये जो guild members का behavior था, that was controlled through a guild code. Customarily, the guild had the power of law. So there was a Shreni Dharma. Okay, and they had the power of law. So in this later Vedic age, in this time, the guilds could act as bankers, financiers, and trustees. So basically, ये जो guilds हैं, they could function as bankers, यानी कि they could lend money or things like that. And yeah, but ये function specifically was carried out by a different category of merchants जिनको बुलाया जाता था Shrestins, present day Seths of North India and the Chettis and Chettiars of South India. Socio-economic life की अगर हम बात करें, so it's also caste system, यहाँ पे it became very rigid, so it saw the crystallization of the caste system. The number of castes increased because जितने तरह के crafts हो रहे थे, उतने तरह के castes बन रहे थे, arrival of new elements into the population and various other factors. So just as, because this is also mentioned in the NCRTs, we will have a look at what is the Anulom Vivah and the Pratilom Vivah. So ये जो Anulom Vivah है, in this, the marriage of a man of a higher varna with a girl of a lower varna, in the sense यहाँ पर who was of the higher caste, the so-called higher caste, the man was of the higher varna and the woman was from the lower varna. That is Anulom Vivah. And then there was this Pratilom Vivah, in which the male or the man was from the lower varna or the lower caste and the woman was from the higher caste. So sacred text के हिसाब से ये the marriage of a man of a higher varna with a girl of a lower varna, that is this Anulom Vivah, was allowed. But this, the second one, that is the Pratilom Vivah, wherein the husband is of the lower varna, was not allowed as per those so-called sacred texts. So now coming to the heterodox religions, very, very important. So we'll see certain important facts related to this. Now, first, to begin with, Buddhism. Now, Buddhism basically started in India over 2600 years ago, and it started as a way of life, and it's based on the teachings, life experiences of Siddhartha Gautam, that is who was born in 1563 BCE. So Gautam Buddha was born in Lumbini. This is important. We'll remember this. Lumbini, he was born in Lumbini, which is situated near the Indo-Nepal border, and Lumbini village in Kapilvastu, Nepal in 563 BC to the Shakya Kshatriya clan. So these people, that is the Shakya Kshatriya clan, consider themselves to be the descendants of the Ikshvaku dynasty. हमारे लिए इसमें से क्या important है? It is important to note that he died in Kushinara, and the event of his death is known as Mahaparinirvana. So he died, this place is important, Kushinara, and the event is known as Mahaparinirvana. He was born in Lumbini, and that is in Kapilvastu, Nepal. So when he was 29, Gautama left home and he rejected his life of, his rich life of, and he embraced the lifestyle of extreme self-discipline. And that event of him, Gautama Buddha, leaving his home, he became Buddha later on only, but that event of him leaving his home, or the great going forth, is known as the Mahabhiraskramana. It's known as the Mahabhiraskramana, or the great going forth, and it is the event when Gautam Buddha left his home and discarded worldly life. Next important fact is about the places that Buddha visited. So after leaving his home in search of enlightenment, Buddha visited Vaishali and learned Sankhya Darshan. Then he went to Rajgriha and there he learned yoga. Later he went to Uruvela where he attained enlightenment. This event is known as Sambodhi. So Uruvela Bodh Gaya, basically 49 days of consecutive meditation के बाद he is said to have, Gautama is said to have attained Sambodhi, or what we also call as Bodhi, and that is enlightenment, and under the people tree at Bodh Gaya in Bihar, Uruvela or Bodh Gaya. The next very important fact is he went to Sarnath. He then went to Sarnath and he gave his first sermon in Sarnath, and that is also known as the Dharma Chakra Parivartana, or rather the Dharma Chakra Pravartana, and that means the turning of the wheel of law. So this is important. This event is important. The first sermon, very very important in Sarnath, and this is known as the Dharma Chakra Pravartana. ज़्यादातर अपने sermons he Buddha delivered from Shravasti, and he made Magad his promotional center. So we can remember, keep in mind the Ashtamahasthan, that is the 8 significant places that are associated with the life of Buddha. These are Lumbini, Bodh Gaya, Sarnath, Kushinagar, Shravasti, Sankissa, Rajgriha and Vaishali. So these are the Ashtamahasthans. So if we look at the chronology of the places that Buddha visited, or the places associated with Buddha, first is Kapilvastu, that is Lumbini where he was born, then Bodh Gaya or Uruvela where he attained Bodhi or enlightenment, Sarnath where he gave his first sermon, that is the Dharma Chakra Parivartana or the Dharma Chakra Pravartana, and Kushinagar where he finally attained Mahaparinirvana, or where he died at the age of 80. That is in Kushinagar or Kushinagara. So this is the chronology, and this we have to keep in mind. So now we look at another very important fact, that is the contemporaries and followers of Buddha. Contemporaries as well as followers of Buddha. Contemporaries यानी कि at the same time. Contemporary का मतलब है those people who lived at the same time. So Ajat Shatru. So Ajat Shatru was a contemporary of Buddha, and he was one of the most important kings of the Haryanka dynasty of Magad, so the kingdom of Magad, and he was the son of Bimbisara. And it is said that Ajat Shatru was actually the contemporary of both Mahavira and Gautama Buddha. So he is said to have been a follower of Buddha, although Ajat Shatru is mentioned in both Jain and Buddhist traditions. So there is an ambiguity whether Ajat Shatru was a Jain or a Buddhist, because both texts accounted for him as a devotee of their religions. Anyhow, he was a contemporary of Buddha and also Mahavira. So Ajat Shatru's father was Bimbisar, and he is also known to have been the contemporary of Buddha and Mahavir. So actually, according to Buddhist tradition, he is known to have been a great friend and protector of Buddha, and Bimbisar, according to Huen Sang, built the city of Rajgir. He was then succeeded by his son Ajat Shatru. Then the other contemporaries that we can remember is Prasenjit, was a contemporary of Buddha and was also a follower of Buddha, and from the kingdom of Koshala. Then there was this Udayan from the kingdom of Vats, and then there was Avantiputra from the kingdom of Shaurasena. So Prasenjit was a contemporary of Buddha, and he had great regard and admiration for Buddha and respected the Shakya clan in which Buddha was born. Next, very importantly, the later rulers who adopted and preached Buddhism. Ashoka was one of them, Kanishk was one of them, Harshvardhana and Pala rulers. This is very important. So Ashoka, Kanishk, Harshvardhana and the Pala rulers were a few of them who adopted and preached Buddhism later on. Ashoka is very important. Then the next important fact is the first woman to enter the Buddhist Sangh was Gautami. Gautami was the first woman to enter the Buddhist Sangh. Now, because Buddhism has been one of the favorite topics from where questions are usually picked up by the UPSC, we have to try and we'll just try and have a look at certain things like this. That is symbols, Buddhist symbols related to Buddha's lives first. Quickly, thoda ye image utna clear nahi hai, but serves the purpose. See, Buddha's birth, the symbol associated with Buddha's birth is the lotus. Lotus and bull are associated with Buddha's birth. The great departure, जिसको हमने जो हमने देखा था, that is also known as that was known as Mahabhir Skramana, right? That basically the event of him leaving his house, that is the great departure जिसको बुलाया जाता है, या the great going forth, that is represented by the horse, and that is the great departure is represented by the horse, and the enlightenment, the event of his enlightenment is represented by this Bodhi tree, or yeah, so Bodhi, that is represented by the Bodhi tree, and the first sermon, his first sermon, is represented by the wheel. What is this? The first sermon, the event of the first sermon, if you remember, was known as the Dharma Chakra Parivartan. And then his stupas basically represent the parinirvana or the death, and because they contain relics. So that is about it. Now, a few important things. As far as teachings of Buddhism is concerned, few important things from the prelims perspective are these. See, Buddha basically asked his followers to avoid the two extremes of indulgence in worldly pleasure, and he ascribed द मध्यम मार्ग, जिसको या मध्य मार्ग जिसको बुलाया जाता है, या फिर अष्टांगिक मार्ग. So this term is important. So Buddha propagated the अष्टांगिक मार्ग, also known as the मध्य मार्ग या मध्यम मार्ग, the middle path. Buddhism is based on three ratnas, that is Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangh. Sangh is the group, and Dhamma is the dharma or the religion, and Buddha is Buddha, of course. So it is said that Buddha was silent on the discussion of the existence of God, but in Buddhism they believe in rebirth. So women were given permission to be admitted in the Sangh, and Buddha, very importantly, was against the caste system and open gates of Buddhism for all castes. So basically it was a kind of reform for that particular time, wherein the caste system was so deeply entrenched in society. Anyhow, those are things we know. Now, the fact here is, Buddhism के जो teachings हैं, they are encapsulated in the concept of Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path, or the Ashtangik Marg here. Ashtangik Marg, or the Eightfold Path, and Four Noble Truths. Four Noble Truths में क्या दिया हुआ है? Four Noble Truths में ये दिया गया है कि दुख, the essence of the world is dukkha or suffering. That is one noble truth. The second noble truth is that the suffering has a cause, that is the samudya. That is anyhow too much of detail, but anyhow it's okay to keep in mind, because we never know what can come to use, because Buddhism is one favorite topic, Buddhism and other heterodox religions. So we better have an idea about it. So the second noble truth is that every suffering has a cause, that is samudya, and suffering को extinguish किया जा सकता है, that is known as nirodha, and that can be achieved. The fourth noble truth is that this nirodha can be achieved by following the ashtangik marg, or the eightfold path. The eightfold path. अब ये eightfold path क्या है? Eightfold path is basically interconnected activities, and certain meditative practices like right view. We have to have the right view, the right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right mindfulness, right effort, and right concentration. So those are things in the Eightfold Path. So Buddha basically said that when desires are conquered, nirvana will be attained, and then people will be free of the cycles of birth and rebirth. And Buddha's, okay, the important part here is this: the Buddha's chief disciple. Who was Buddha's chief disciple? It was Upali. Upali was the chief disciple of Buddha. This is important, and his most favorite disciple was Ananda. तो जैसे कि एक प्रीलिम्स बास्केट में ऑलरेडी डिस्कस कर लिया है हमने कि थर्ड देयर आर तीन पिताकास हैं, दैट इज द टेक्स्ट्स एज फार एज दिस इज कंसर्न्ड. सी बुद्धा का ओरिजिनली क्या था कि बुद्धा's टीचिंग्स went on orally, were passed on orally. He taught for 45 years, and so Sangha, the Sangh, that is the group of these monks, they memorized his teachings, and the teachings were rehearsed, and then they were authenticated at the first council, and फिर वहां पर उसको तीन पिताकास में डिवाइड कर दिया गया. We will have a look at the Buddhist Councils as well that took place, and वहां पर तीन पिताकास या पिटाकास में डिवाइड कर दिया गया, however it is pronounced, पिटाकास I am saying. Okay, so his teachings were written down in Pali, right? So तीन पिटाकास के बारे में देख लेते हैं. First of all, the Satta Pitaka. So this, very quickly, I've already discussed this point in another prelims basket, but just good to recall because these things we tend to forget. The Satta Pitaka basically contains the teachings of Buddha, or the dharma, the main teachings of Buddha, and इसके कई सारे divisions हैं. So basically 5 divisions it has. So it contains the teachings of Buddha. That is what we have to remember. Vinaya Pitaka is about the rules of conduct and discipline that are applicable to the monks and nuns. The Abhidhamma Pitaka is the philosophical analysis and of the teaching. Basically, it contains philosophy, the philosophical aspects of Buddhism. Next, very, very important topic, that is the Buddhist Councils. Certain important facts about the Buddhist councils that we have to keep in mind. The first Buddhist council. The first Buddhist council, see, basically, this was held soon after the Mahaparinirvana of Buddha, that is after the death of Buddha, around 483. It was held in 483 BCE under the patronage of the king Ajatashatru. This is important. The first Buddhist council was under Ajatashatru, and the place was Rajgriha or Rajgir, present day Rajgir. So the first Buddhist council was held under the patronage of Ajatashatru. It was presided by a monk known as Mahakasyapa, and the council was held in Rajgriha. This is important. And it was here, what was the accomplishment here? The council was held with the purpose of preserving Buddha's teachings and rules. Basically, it was during this council that the teachings of the Buddha were divided into the Pitakas, basically the Satta Pitaka, the Vinaya Pitaka. The second Buddhist council was held in Vaishali, and the ruler was Kalashok, and this was held in 383 BCE. That is not so important, but it was presided by this person known as Sabakami. यहाँ पर एक accomplishment या एक important चीज ये हुई, accomplishment या it was यहाँ पर ये चीज हुई कि जो बुद्धिस्ट संघ है that was divided into schools. ठीक है, so the Buddhist Sangh was divided into the Theravadi and the Mahasangnik. The Mahasangik, the Theravadi and the Mahasangik. ठीक है, Theravadi का एक और नाम है Sthavira. This is important. Theravadi is also known as Sthavira, and Mahasangik is also known as Sarvastivadin. This we have to keep in mind. Theravadi or Sthavira and Mahasangik या Sarvastivadin. Theravadi जो है, this is basically the oldest Buddhist school, and its main center in Kashmir with its main center in Kashmir. Mahasangik's main center was in Magad, Mahasangik. So remember this, Theravadi or it was divided into two, Theravadi और Sthavira एक ही है, and Mahasangik या Sarvastivadin एक ही है, Mahasangik and Sarvastivadin. So these are the two divisions. Theravadi oldest school है, it is the oldest school and इसका main center Kashmir, and Mahasangik का main center is Magad, was Magad. The third Buddhist council, the important thing was that it was presided over by Ashoka. This is very important. This was presided over by Ashoka. The third Buddhist council was presided over by Ashoka, or it was rather, we can say it was not presided over by Ashoka. Basically, it was held under the patronage of Ashoka. It was presided by another person known as Mogaliputta Tisa, some person like that. But what we have to remember is that the ruler here at this time was Ashoka, and it was under his patronage that the third Buddhist council was held. Accomplishment क्या था यहाँ पे? Okay, yeah. So यहाँ पर the accomplishment यहाँ पर was that this was compiled. See, पहले दो ही पिटाकास. Actually, first Buddhist council में तीन पिटाकास में नहीं. There is this two. It was compiled into two pitakas. That is Sutta Pitaka and Vinay Pitaka. So we saw Ananda was his favorite disciple, and Upali was also the disciple of Buddha. So Vinay Pitaka by Upali and Sutta Pitaka by Ananda in the first Buddhist council. यहाँ पर Abhidhamma Pitaka नहीं था, right? So it was in this third Buddhist council. So third Pitaka came here. Okay, so compilation of the third Pitaka, that is the Abhidhamma Pitaka, came up here. So इससे पहले the teachings of Buddha were in two baskets, that were the Satya Pitaka and the Vinay Pitaka. But now it also this third basket was added, that is the Abhidhamma Pitaka, in the third council. So this gets a little too factual, so there can be a certain error, but this is the fact. Now here the third one here was in the third Buddhist council. The first two in the first Buddhist council. The third one, the third basket, that is the third Pitaka, was in the third Buddhist council that was held under the patronage of King Ashoka. Then comes the fourth Buddhist council, and this was held in Kashmir under the patronage of Kanishk. Okay, and यहाँ पे the accomplishment was that Vasumitra compiled Vibha Shastra. This was compiled. So this was a commentary in Sanskrit on the difficult aspects of Buddhist texts. What is this? Vibha Shastra. This we can just keep in mind. Vibha Shastra was compiled in the fourth Buddhist council. एक important चीज यहाँ पे ये हुई कि the Buddhist school now broke into Hinayana and Mahayana. तो इससे पहले हमने देखा that it got divided into this Theravadi and Mahasangik. So यहाँ पर हुआ क्या? In the fourth Buddhist council, जो पहले division था Theravadi या Sthavira, this became Hinayana. And this Mahasangik या Sarvastivadin became Mahayana. Right? So it was divided into Hinayana and Mahayana in the fourth Buddhist council. ये Hinayana and Mahayana, ये terms are associated with the fourth Buddhist council. Theravadi, Sthavira and Mahasangik or Sarvastivadin are associated with the second Buddhist council. So we have seen a lot of facts for today. There are a lot of facts to keep in mind, and so आज के लिए इस पे यहाँ पे पॉज करेंगे. यहाँ जो इसका जो डिस्कशन है फॉर एंशिएंट इंडिया प्रीलिम्स के पर्सपेक्टिव से वी विल कंटिन्यू, जहाँ पे इसके बाद हम डिस्कस वी विल हैव टू सी इंपॉर्टेंट फैक्ट्स अबाउट द हिनायना स्कूल, द महायाना स्कूल, एंड ऑल्सो बिकॉज दैट इज अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट एंड क्वेश्चंस डू कम फ्रॉम दैट often, and we'll then talk about Jainism and important facts from Jainism from modern period and all of that in the upcoming later on prelims basket videos. So for today यहाँ यहीं पे pause करते हैं, बाकी का बाद में देखेंगे.